Good viewer, you are watching Xirtus. This is because Xirtus makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch Xirtus for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to Xirtus, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about Xirtus. Your friends will come to like Xirtus, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to Xirtus. See, that was easy.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
Synctank.
All right, well, I got really excited and I was just going to start the show, but then I thought I got to show you the home improvement mod. All right, well, that made me happy.
So did you literally just like take Doom and then just put him on like every single part of it? Is that what
That's
happened
the
there?
home improvement mod for Doom. Yeah,
Is that Doom or not Quake? Could have been something else. Could have been Quake.
it does kind of look like Quake, but I think it's Doom because it's the easier engine. I could be wrong. I want to look that up now. Let me see. I think it is Doom. It is Doom. Sorry.
The old WAD files.
Like, what do I know about myself? Thanks, Alex. Good to see you. It's been a while.
Good to see you too. Hey,
Dude,
thanks
so
for having me unannounced.
Her fiance or something like that. She's also a synchromystic person, and I've seen her do synchromystic stuff on the internet. And I was like, "Oh, that's crazy! Like, this is like a community of synchromystics, and just like epic." So yeah, that was really cool to find out. Also, there's a thing from Sam Tripoli, Paranoid Americans. We're all paranoid Americans. You know, think about it. And this is a vibe that you can only get if you're married and have kids. Look at that face. Look at that energy. Look at that. That's what happens when you stop doing crack in the bathroom.
Those Dahmer glasses too.
Hollywood.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is crazy, man. Sam Tripoli came out and he was very vulnerable on stage in a very vulnerable moment, and he expressed his pronouns.
Gender. I'm just never mind. Keep going.
And well, I guess it went viral, but a lot of people are not happy with his pronouns, and I'm not gonna repeat his.
What are his pronouns? Us and them.
Was it the N-word sort of deal? Is that what
Well, I mean, there was an N in some of it.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you know what? The point is that if you can't respect people's pronouns, then who are you? This is an issue that we have to learn to respect people, even if it means saying things that you don't feel comfortable saying. I think that's kind of the point, right? Yeah.
And this is also the point of
especially if it means
change.org exists for things like this.
Yeah, I agree.
Was this issue discussed in Bob Vila's 100 Things I Forgot to Mention on This Old House? Sorry, I was trying to tie it back to the Home Improvement.
Home Improvement. You know, I just recently watched the entirety of Home Improvement for the first time as an adult.
Really?
It was really good. It's a good show.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It makes you wonder about, I mean,
couldn't be made today.
Other kids getting molested on every other show, and then here's a show where like the kids walk away like during the making of like an art Pinocchio film, right? Like the whole thing. What was going on with Jonathan Taylor Thomas? That poor boy. You gotta wonder.
Yeah. There's lots and lots of weird stuff with him in the show and the innuendos.
Wait, what's the Pinocchio thing?
Remember, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, JTT, did the Pinocchio movie, which was, artistic and tasteful in like a very like homoerotic pedophile art style. I don't know how else to put that. There's just like a kind of
Nickelodeon.
Was that the Roberto Benigni version or was that a different version?
No, was it? No, was it?
Because there's the Tom Hanks version that was a total flop. That I think what did they say? They filmed it and it was so short. It was like they filmed it in like less than a month or even less than that. I can't remember. But
then there were two of them at the same time. So.
Right, because it's Guillermo del Toro's, which kicks ass, I will say. And that took him like years. Like he spent years on this thing. And then it was like, oh, so you spent years on this and then Disney's just gonna like throw something together with Tom Hanks as fast as they can. With total crap. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was an amazing movie. I really enjoyed the idea of the fascism. And I'm talking about the Pinocchio with Tom Hanks, but also Del Toro's. Fascism and Pinocchio just go well together. It makes a lot of sense with phalangism. But Steve Barron, who did like the music video again for Electric Avenue and Summer of '69 and Africa by Toto, the music video guy, also did like Ninja Turtles, Coneheads.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
That's right.
Coneheads. Oh, damn. Coneheads.
The Adventures of Pinocchio in 1996.
Right.
However, I feel like other people, I don't know if I'm supposed to blame Steve Barron or what I'm supposed to do, but The Adventures of Pinocchio has that. It kind of reminds me of the Macaulay Culkin, Snow Prince like musical. What's that one? Like the Winter
Nutcracker.
Did he do a version of the Nutcracker? I don't know.
Yeah, Nutcracker. That's what I'm saying. Cracker.
Wait a minute. What year was that? Was that what Helena wanted to stay up to watch in Eyes Wide Shut? Was it?
I think so. Yeah. This is the one that she wanted to watch. It's the Macaulay Culkin Nutcracker that just came out. Yeah.
Can you look for the exact release date of that?
Sure. 1993, but
because 93 is a big year. That it was just
99 was Eyes Wide Shut. So this is probably what she wanted to watch.
Probably.
24th,
November 24th.
Critical Response. No, wait, did it say here somewhere? Release date November 24th, 1993.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow, that kind of adds to the conspiracy idea of what's embedded in Eyes Wide Shut with the kidnapping at the end and whatnot. That like he has that Pizza Underground. Was he like an early whistleblower of you know what I'm talking about? But yeah,
the one thing about him is I don't know. I can tie this into my thing that I've published about Wonka, but the 2196 is a big number that I've really looked at, and there's just 2196 weeks, and so half of that is 1098. And as it happens, this is the amount of time between Elon Musk and Snowpiercer and a bunch of other shit. But that's how old Macaulay Culkin was on 9/11. So that was a horribly described way of saying that he's right in the same little matrix as everything else.
96 weeks old was during September 11th. Macaulay Culkin was
half of that, which is 42 plus 153 plus 237 plus 6066, which is just like kind of constant that I use. And yeah, Macaulay Culkin is the same. It's the same length of time actually between the birth of Timothy Chalamet and Damien Eccles, the birth of Damien Eccles, the West Memphis 3 guy. So anyway, Macaulay Culkin is interesting.
So Alex, we had a show with you on a while back, not that long ago, and I really wanted to talk about some of the things I was told from Bill at the time around what you had shared around Elon Musk and Willy Wonka, and we couldn't really go there. But now your thing is published. Would you mind giving like a brief, like kind of, you know?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess it started with just noticing the fact that I've mentioned before that Elon Musk was born the same day that Willy Wonka premiered. This is just kind of your classic old school little sync. Oh, correspondence. What is it? So then I just started putting my crypto K number date time magic onto it and just kind of drawing the picture out to other things that are Wonka related to like expand the sync, right? So Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which is the Tim Burton movie. And so then I wound up basically, my essay on Substack is basically just sort of me going through these date intervals, like saying, oh, what happened at the midpoint between Elon Musk and the birth of, say, Gene Wilder, who is the original Willy Wonka. And like, you know, it goes from there. I kind of extrapolate out from there, but I wind out with this sort of quadratic four-way structure between Elon Musk, Johnny Depp's birthday, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which is where Johnny Depp plays Willy Wonka, and then the fourth one is Snowpiercer, which is like not even supposed to be about Willy Wonka, but it secretly is. And so they're all kind of tied together in this temporal structure with a midpoint at the center of it. So I think that explains a little bit of what it's like, and I can like spoil it, but I don't know what you knew about it, what Bill told you about it, David. But
all that's good. Plus, I want a little bit more on why Snowpiercer is about Willy Wonka. My dad just watched Snowpiercer the other night, and I was like, yeah.
There's a video on YouTube about it, but it's like there's just lots of correspondences. You're familiar with it, the movie?
Basically, it's an extremely strong argument that Snowpiercer is the sequel to Willy Wonka.
Yeah,
like extremely strong arguments. Shocking strong argument.
So
you're saying that Snowpiercer is the glass elevator? Is that kind of the idea?
Kinda, yeah. The W, you know, Wilford is the name of the guy who's at the head of the train, who's in charge of it all.
Oh.
And that's sort of supposedly is Charlie, the young Charlie who inherited Wonka's factory and his energy producing technology or whatever. And so when this global catastrophe occurred, Charlie was the one that had the capability to survive it, and he kind of survived it with a cross section of humanity. And so there's a whole bunch of like correspondences, like that the characters in Snowpiercer overlap with the characters in Willy Wonka, such as the John Hurt character, who is the one-armed man. He's supposed to be Slugworth or not, whatever his assistant, whoever his assistant was. I don't think it's Slugworth, but Gilliam in this thing, which is funny. So it's Wilford, which is W, and Gilliam, which is G at the on both ends of the train, which is 23 and 7. So yeah. Have you gotten to read any of this, David? I'm just
yeah.
I try not to sound too crazy,
but I read the first few, and so no.
Basically, it's just
tracked variables, but like when you know what an asset is, you can count apples or oranges, even if you don't completely know what the apple or the orange is. So I mean, you're definitely like tying things together.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Just kind of exploration, really, and. It's just uncanny. There is, I routinely find things that like make me like send a shiver up my spine. I'm like, what the? This can't be real. This can't be real.
Yeah, I got the same sensation reading what I read of what you wrote that I got back in 2010 when I used to read The Sinkhole, and I was first like, it's just such classic synchronicity, and then it gets me going. Sometimes I'll think something, and then I'll just keep reading, and then you'll say the thing that I was thinking, like, oh well, he should include this, and then lo and behold, you did. And so, you know, there's just like these really weird factors, like the connection with Johnny Depp playing that part. Like it was rumored, I don't think it's true, but it was rumored that Johnny Depp said, I'm not going to play Willy Wonka unless if you ask Marilyn Manson first, and he says no. And whatever the case is, it's like, you know, they did that.
That's interesting.
They did that cover of that song together on Born Villain at the end, where it's like the was it Clouds in My Coffee? the one about supposedly about Warren Beatty and Mick Jagger. What's that? You're So Vain. So like, you know, like he would like, because he'd play in concert. So Johnny Depp would play guitar for that song in concert and other songs too, with Marilyn Manson. And so they're good friends. And I actually had an incident happen where okay, so Amber Heard was on trial with Johnny Depp, and at one point during the trial, I was on Twitter, and I was basically like, come on, like who's the lady who was with Marilyn Manson? Basically,
Rose McGowan,
Evan Rachel Wood, that one. And so I was like, I said on Twitter, I was like, I didn't realize who I was commenting to. I was like, I find it hard to believe that Evan Rachel Wood and Amber Heard didn't like know each other well. And it was, I think it was a relative of Evan Rachel Wood. Yeah, it was a relative of Evan Rachel Wood responded to me super defensive that they had only met each other once. And it was at some, it was at like Cannes or something. And she was like, there's no connection there. And I was like, dude, you think that these women never talk to each other? Like, and the fact that she got as defensive as she did, like, made me even feel stronger that, come on,
yeah,
man.
She's like, no, they're a completely different coven. They do completely different yoga. Like, they're the same yoga clinic, but different hours. She's 11. She's like,
exactly. That kind of plays into my whole little bit about like Mac Miller and Angus Young, which I don't know if you got that far, but like I kind of do a big deep dive of their deaths and careers somewhat, where it's just like these, it seems like Evan Rachel Wood and Amber Heard seem to be like doppelgangers, but that's pretty normal. And what I said one about Amber Heard that I don't think I included in there was that I talk a lot about 19th birthdays and like 19-year intervals. And so lo and behold, Amber Heard was born on the 19th birthday of Cheryl Lee, who played Laura Palmer in Twin Peaks, which is very interesting to me. Right? That's weird. That's just like, don't they? I mean,
that's pretty good.
The archetype.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty good.
Well, right. I mean, like also on the level,
and that's also Jack Nicholson's birthday too, April 22nd, by the way.
Really?
Anyway, yeah. So anyway,
that's, I mean, just the idea that Amber Heard is the AGI computer system says she has the closest thing to a perfect face of any human.
Right.
Symmetrical perfection, all that other stuff.
But it's too perfection.
What does that mean? Yeah, exactly.
It's how they say that like too much symmetry is uncanny, and
it's like synchronicities all around. Yeah, it's like what's going on. So I don't know. I was wondering.
But like part of me, my little thing is sort of entertaining the ideas from like crazy YouTube commenters who are like who were at one time were saying Angus Cloud and Mac Miller were the same person or like the same guy just under like a rubber mask or whatever, the sophisticated masks that they have, which I'm sure they do have. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, I can imagine like really paranoid thought being Amber Heard is like being played by Evan Rachel Wood underneath some prosthetic. Right. And that Evan Rachel Wood's just like a brilliant actress, so props to her.
Right, it's really defensive about like not meeting.
Could it also just be simple math? It's like you got something that symmetrically perfect. Is this the we could use science and evolution and epigenetics and in the economy to say like how this is a manifestation of the human condition, that it produces something like this that is Amber Heard, right? And all that comes with it, because it's not enough for it to look away. It has to look that way by a process of, fitting in with all these other synchronicities. And from there, that also comes with it baggage. So it's not just going to be pretty. It's also going to come with all of the trauma that made that symmetry possible.
Yeah. So this is the thing. So somebody in the comments is like, why do we care about these people or whatever? And that's a valid question. But like it really like what we're doing here, like the show is called Synctank. I love it when Alex, when you come on, because we tend to go more into the sync stuff. And some of us were there to see like this thing that happened on the internet that has now become more mainstream. So we're seeing the esoteric become exoteric. that's been an ongoing process that we've gotten to witness. And, you know, Jake Coates's explanation, his definition of synchromysticism is basically has to do with recognizing profundity within the mundane, and how much more mundane can you get than these like character actors. Like for me, like I'm like somebody mentions Evan Rachel Wood, she's in Westworld, and I'm immediately going to the kind of more hidden meaning of like Valley of the Dolls, which is like, you know, with Sharon Tate's role in that. And then I'm immediately like looking at your article, like it's very complex, so it's hard to explain it all. But you know, you have Margot Robbie playing Sharon Tate and then playing Barbie, which is very much in line with like what was being communicated with Valley of the Dolls. Of course, the dolls are the pills, they're the drugs that they're taking, but at the same time, they are the dolls themselves. And you'll see like a point in that movie where they like walk past a mannequin and they comment on it like they were kind of like mannequins. And Marilyn Manson had this whole trip on this with mechanical animals. And in fact, like first of all, mechanical animals syncs with what's that? Barbiturates?
You're Barbie barbiturate. You are
barbiturates, totally. And so with mechanical animals syncs with Valley of the Dolls like nobody's business. I have that on the website. It's really something. But actually, if you watch like the music video for the Dope Show, what's happening in that video is what is described in the film Valley of the Dolls when what's her name was in rehab. She actually ended up playing Rosemary in the sequel to Rosemary's Baby. Is it Patty Duke? Yeah. So Patty Duke is basically it's so layered because she's like playing Judy Garland on one level, which she has admitted years later in an interview at the Castro Theater that everybody knew it. And they put like a disclaimer at the beginning to say none of this is based on reality, but everyone involved knew that it was. And so if you watch the music video for the Dope Show that's on Mechanical Animals, Patty Duke's description of what rehab was like in Valley of the Dolls is literally what happens in the music video, where you have a human zoo. So there's like this whole idea of the human zoo thing. So I don't know, just looking at Alex's writing, it's just like there's all these things that are coming up for me that I'm like, oh, connection here, connection here. So it's kind of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like if you watch that movie, like a lot of people watch that movie and they're like, what is that even about? Like it doesn't have that much depth. But the thing is that the more that you know about the Hollywood mythology, the more depth it ends up having. So like it's so layered and multifaceted, but a viewer could watch it, and if they're not familiar with the subject matter, they won't even really get the point of what the movie is. It's kind of like the Rum Diary is also that way, where it's just like, you know, if you don't know that this is Hunter S. Thompson at the beginning of his life and everything, if you didn't have that and you're just like a young person or whatever, and you don't have the context, you're not watching the same movie, you know?
This might be like the first one of the earlier in MK Ultra aesthetics that I saw. I was like, wait, what is this? He's like a alien, like mind control victim that they're like juicing, you know, essentially.
Yeah, he is also a mannequin. He is a doll. And then the Dope Show is the drugs. But then we already have like dope in our bodies, talking about dopamine. So we're getting high on dopamine, and it's just it's really lyrically a really good song, you know.
And the music video is classy with the police, gay police. It was just so real. It's just very real,
right? And then he ties in the stuff from the Holy Mountain when he thrashes the mannequins, because there was the mannequins in the Holy Mountain that were in the shape of the cross when the guy gets molded. And so he's friends with Jodorowsky at this point. He officiated his wedding with Kat Von D. And so yeah, it's just it's crazy.
Yeah. Some interesting stuff there. Westworld's a cool show to an extent. I feel like, especially since they canceled it. You guys have thoughts on Westworld beyond? I mean, Valley of the Dolls.
The original Westworld movie is the first movie that ever used like digital image processing in a feature film, and it's like that pixelated view that goes on to be used by like Predator and Terminator, but that was one of the quiz questions that I remember in school for doing like graphic design and animation. Was that this was the one that broke the mold for everybody.
It's Michael Crichton's script, right? I'm pretty sure.
And Jules Brenner, who was in Taurus Bulba and all of these weird Tartarian history revision films. You know, he plays all these crazy roles. He's in the Moses 10 Commandments, right? Like he plays Ramses.
He does. That's true. I forgot about that. That's interesting.
Pretty sweet.
Westworld. I mean, Westworld season 1 was pretty revelational. Whatever I'm trying to say. It was a revelation.
So let it be written. So let it be done.
When it was a revelation.
When it came out,
yeah,
just really, it really hit a lot of sync boxes, I guess, of where I was at the time when it was coming out. Very Gnostic, very much like I don't know. The whole thing is very game. Like it's a game, and
was it
at the end of the game he finds it inside his own head. It's like, what?
Was this before or after Red Dead Redemption? I don't remember the actual video game where you get to basically do
that would be after the first.
I think the game came out just after this, but not too many years after this.
Yeah, not too many. I think, yeah.
Before Red Dead 2, Fantasy Island thing here going on. Like there's all these particular shows about the ultra elite that can spend billions of dollars to play these weird games with people's lives. Yeah. That was becoming a weird trend that I don't think people really like understood or cared about. It was just in a lot of shows, like the Dollhouse. Joss Whedon's Dollhouse has that similar kind of idea. But yeah, there's definitely that MK Ultra vibe of like, people just play with your lives because that's what makes it possible for them to like run the rest of society, which is making it possible for all these advancements. So it's worth it to be a victim.
Which is a kind of theory that I had discussed with Sean early on with CryptoK, which is that the sort of time traveling theory where like what are all these weird people with these weird things about them are of some higher class or something, and Westworld is the perfect metaphor of people just like vacationing in a reality, like is that what this reality here is for people to come from the realm or future or past to like just jerk off and whatever, and have fun, maybe. Well, but that's kind of depressing and cynical, but.
Well, like virtual reality, right? Like I feel like I said this on the show before. It's like when I think of the Wachowski
siblings,
I think that like those people must be doing some crazy VR combined with research chemicals and God knows what, and like where they're at with it. Like how are they in this? Like they're not quite in this realm anymore. It's like, what is their lifestyle like with technology? Like I can only imagine, like, I feel like there's something to that. Like they're just, I don't know.
Aliens synchronized. The whole idea of Clockwork Elves, like every interesting interview with some celebrity that is, not too smart, but like was abducted by aliens and has accidentally admitted it to the public or something. They're almost always. I was just thinking about like Bill Maher's Politically Correct show long ago. This is this 2001 episode that has Joe Rogan. Where's he at? Joe Rogan and Mark Cuban, whatever, right there. And it's just interesting because like the way reality seems to work is you make these excuses for interactions, and then when these things interact, you wonder if there's something deeper there based on whether or not there are synchronicities. So synchronicities are the grammar or the vocabulary of whatever this thing is that you're talking about, whether it's an extra, it's extraterrestrial, but also it's more like dimensional or, mathematical. It's the idea that you're a symmetry, that your room is a symmetry, and yet somehow that we're able to quantum stack your room, his room, my room, and have these symmetries interact with each other. That is pretty amazing to us, but it's probably like nature to something that's non-material, right? It's something that just like things are fitting into shapes, materials fitting into shapes. So you're going to find the same shapes over and over again. And again, we're interacting. So the more you interact with it, the more that you see synchronicities, the more it's probably trying to communicate with you through synchronicities. So you start, this is the Matrix or any movie or any story. They're like, hey, you see two cats over and over again, or you interact with someone who's very similar to someone else. Like you start to notice the meme programming. Someone said this yesterday. It was not eugenics, it's eumemics, right? Yes. There are people that are trying to perfect the ideology of how to, train people to respond. And so then people just act the same way. And you see more and more of that because kids are getting higher resolution memes. You're not just hearing about kids jumping off their roofs anymore. You're seeing how they do it and trying to do it yourself,
Mm-hmm.
Don't jump off your roof.
Yeah. Well, it's both. It's eugenics and what you just said, eumemics instead of.
Yeah. I didn't come up with it, but I like
eumemics. Okay. Oh, I see, because it's smooshing them. It's putting them together.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that works. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
My understanding of eugenics is always that it was a way to weed stuff out as opposed to a way to like create some ubermensch. I realize that that's one of the prevailing philosophies that makes it popular with like the farty academics, but the actual implementation of it was very much to just weed out the worst, because it was seen as a scourge where how dare, you know, this particular part of my bloodline with all of my money and all my resources and all of like this dynasty that I've got going, how dare, you know, you have some kind of a disease or you have dementia when you're like 20. That was the big one. And they were like, how do we get rid of this? And after they tried lots of stuff, they basically eventually came up with the idea that we just need to start weeding out anyone that shows signs of it. And if somebody has a certain issue, like make sure that their parents don't have any more kids, and they start like incentivizing it. And that's kind of the origin story.
Well, there's two parts, right? Like there's one idea, which is that humanity might not be in need of becoming a cyborg if we just get rid of all of the diseases that are, I mean, that idea of there be dragons, we have all these stories of before the flood, people living thousands of years or hundreds of years at least, but not just 100 years. And there's a lot of stories about people having their age cut off, like the Yahweh in after the flood tells, you know, that's it. No more 700-year-old people. It's it. We're going to 130 from now on. And there's Quechua Peruvian.
Was there a bargaining process? I imagine there was.
I imagine people got, you know, God was upset. He's like, look, this is it. Like, I'm tired of watching old men with hula hoops at 300. Like, they need to stop. But the Peruvian stories are similar. Also, the idea that they were giants after the flood. They can only live for 100 years and they're half the height and things like that. There's stories like that in ancient China. There's stories like that in Russia. So this idea to me is reasonable that there might have been a point where humans naturally were living twice as long or 3 or 10 times as long, who knows, and being taller. This is an interesting idea that we're trying to get back to a genetic perfection. But I had Gennady on yesterday from the United States Transhumanist Party, and he brought up a pretty interesting point, which, you know, I'll be thinking about for a few days, which is that if genetics are just using us to propel the superorganism, so you're like a potato, you're not the potato fruit. You're like a fingernail. You're not like the body. Like if you get clipped, it doesn't mean the rest of the body dies. So the human organism is immortal and it's doing fine. Why is it that you're dying? Well, you get about 35 years to make sure you do. It's incentivizing you do things with the investment it's made in producing you. Now you're supposed to replicate, you know, survive, reproduce, have children, nurture them, and maybe by 35 you're old enough to be a grandparent, right? Like, so your kids were born when you were a teenager biologically, and then their kids are being born as teenagers. So now you have to be a slight grandparent for a few years to help your kids guide the kids, and you're done. You're done. That's all you're here for biology. So it doesn't actually. It's not so much that there's an engineering to turn you off. It's more probable that there's just no engineering to keep you running after you've done what you need to do, and they produce new humans that are like the new model. Because like, I want a new dirt bike. I'm biology. I don't need like last year's human. That's, I think, possible. It might not be that. So those are the two kinds of eugenics. Then you're stuck with one, which is saying, let's try to get back to a perfection which might not exist, but at least we're going to try to get rid of viruses, you know, diseases, things like that, to get to like a pretty decent human form. The next thing, though, is like, how do I make humans better? And everyone's got a different idea, but I think cyborg is not always ideal. Like, we have had cyborgs for thousands of years. Heroin addicts are cyborgs. Think about it. Like, your body is being adapted and assisted through technology, which is biological and chemical technologies, but still, so that you're augmented, so you're no longer following a natural paradigm. These are things that existed for thousands of years. Now we've got aspirin and we've got antibiotics and things like that, and they're pushing the idea even further. But is that making a more healthy human? Is that making a more sustainable human? Is that making a human that's better suited for nature? It might not be correct that we need to, to supplement humans with cybernetics the way we'd like to think that like Neuralink is the answer. It might be that we're supposed to have things like the Olympics, which cause epigenetic responses. I mean, this is one of those things where like people are always against Israel, and I'm weirdly for Israel for all the wrong reasons. You know, like people are like, yeah, but they have a military. I'm like, that's one of the things I love about Israel. The fact that all of the kids in Israel are going through training and exercises, both psychological and physical, which are elevating their physique and their minds and their like concentration and
another country that did that, you know,
generation by generation, is an epigenetic assist, right? So I mean, this is the alternative. This is eugenics right there. If you're trying to talk about the physical response of epigenetics to choices being enforced by the state, that's the opposite of reading out genes. That's the changing of genes.
The problem is in part all these conflations. So first of all, one of my biggest pet peeves, as stated many times, is that the conflation of biology with technology I see as problematic, especially when you hear the way that it's spoken of in the Silicon Valley, and then if you apply that to COVID response and all these things. But you also see the conflation of religion with political movements. And that to me is also highly problematic. You know, like if we were having this conversation about a country that didn't conflate the two in the way that it does, we wouldn't be talking about an ethnostate situation. It's a religious fervor connected to political fervor, as though they're one and the same, and that is going to create. It's inevitable that will create divide. So, like, you know, it's not that people should have, you know, can't have different views, and then we all need to align. Like, we need that diversity, but at the same time, if those differing views are used to divide further and to compartmentalize, you know, the population, there's no good that's going to come from that. It's like if you get into a debate with somebody on abortion, and it doesn't matter, like, if you're pro-choice or if you're, you know, against abortion, like, you're probably not going to reconcile that in any simple conversation, because people are deeply held in their beliefs. And so if it's a tug of war that, you know, that no one's really ever going to win, it's just going to go on and on with the fighting. So it's like a sunk cost fallacy problem. It's like you have to, at a certain point, be like, is this ever going to be something that we even can reconcile on these terms? Which is like the was the R.D. Lang issue that he expressed in Knots. He's like, you're looking at something that has a certain inertia. It's not going to deviate its course unless it's acted upon by a directional force outside of itself. You know, like, it's not going to be reconciled on its own terms. So you have to consider that when you're approaching it. But people don't want to do that. And in that way, we're kind of like children, just like we would just want to fight it out. And it's like, dude, you're not going to fix this way.
We do want to. Are all ethnicities or all races, like, there's no race, right? There's a human race, and we kind of know there's maybe like gene flow of Heidelbergensis and Neanderthal, but are all ethnicities are all ethnostates created by religions, essentially? Because think about it, a religion today, we don't really think about it what a religion is, but it used to be different. Today, you know, people marry people from different religions, kind of like in America, like, oh, I'm a Protestant and I married a Presbyterian, and they think it's so dynamic, like so diverse. But really, Christians are marrying Christians, Muslims are marrying Muslims, and even more specific, like Sunnis are marrying specific Sunnis, and Hindus are marrying within their to a point that you get, after a certain period of time, an ethnicity, right? An ethnicity isn't really anything more than specific genes that have been kind of sequestered and isolated from other genes, right? So we're creating these things that people think are real, which basically are new developments. A lot of religions are only, I mean, Christianity is only 200 years old the way we understand it, maybe 50 years old. It's not the 1,000-year-old Christianity, but this is creating an American ethnicity, or a South American Latino ethnicity, that is, it's genetically enforced, but all created through ideology, right? And so this is a perpetuation that we're about to face. And it's, again, like David's saying, through fighting, because people say, well, no, if you're not like me, then you can't be you can't marry my daughter can't marry your son. We will not interact with each other. And it builds up this this actual differences.
Well, you're talking about how, like, the humanity is kind of like little skin cells, right? And if that were the case, I feel like I'm the ingrown hair on, like, the inside of the nose that's, like, really annoying.
Dude, Grant Morrison explained that really well, of like what you just said. Yeah.
Well, I think that there's a really cool aspect of that too, because I think it's like every 7 years, a large portion of your body just like recreates itself, right? So every 7 years, all the cells in your body kind of get swapped out for new ones. And something like that Andreas was just saying, that religion's kind of similar to that. So every 50 years, it's almost like it regrows itself. So even though it's your same arm that's been there the whole time, it's made up of different things, like depending on the foods that you've been eating and everything else, right? So I think that that's very similar, not just to ethnicities and religions, but everything in general. Like I
but when
doubt
I told
that
you that, I
anything
didn't
lasts
mean
longer
like
than 50.
I didn't mean like every normal human. I just meant lizard people like me. Like I was complaining that day how I had to like peel the shedding skin off my feet because it just all comes off at once if you don't remove it. It's a problem with being a lizard person.
Well, that's because you skipped the arc.
I think your cells just sort of like you shed a little here, shed a little there. It's not like you're dropping and pooping out a gut and then replacing it with a new organ. That'd be sweet though. We should do it that way.
Interesting.
7 years, I was going to say 7, lots. I think about 7 a lot. So 7 years being, I know it's not, every 7 years we switch out all our cells. It's a cumulative process, but 7 years, like, go ahead. That's it. I didn't have any long speech.
It would be pretty sick if it was like 7 years on the dot and you just woke up with like a cicada shell next to you.
That's what I don't like. I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you gotta really. It's better if you don't notice it. I don't know, like, because that's like an instantaneous like aging on Lyft. But what about like psychoanalysis in general? So it's interesting because you talk about synchronicities and be like, why do we care about these people? And AI doesn't care necessarily. People say care is so specific. I don't think care is the word, but weights of importance, right? So it's looking at pictures of cats. It's like, wow, people love cats. Looking at pictures of Amber Heard and saying, wow, people are interested. And it starts to figure out like why. And also that
is the question. That is the question. Why are these people?
That is it.
And that's a longer discussion, but it's
Well, the interesting thing to me is they're finding that so DARPA has a project. Gosh, where did I put that link? AI Next is DARPA's thing, which is for predicting the future. And they're pretty successful at predicting everything from, volcanoes to celebrity divorces within like 3 to 6 days.
Yeah.
And that's crazy to have that kind of power because you can use that to predict the weather or the stock market or war. Battle, I mean, if it's weird though to think that these things are connected, that some battle in Ukraine might be somehow connected to Amber Heard's facial symmetry. It's freaking weird. That doesn't register for most humans because they're trying to sleep at night. But the fact that if you were to put it all together and you were to add all the weights that these things are tied together, it makes a certain amount of objective sense that everything is tied together. Everything.
Yeah. I mean, like the trial, for example, it's like, yeah, why do people care about the trial? It's like, well, why are we being made to care about it?
Yeah.
And is there a chance that the whole thing is totally fucking fake? Like just
it kind of feels fake, right? The fact that Amber Heard is friends, at least, right? Like a relationship with Elon Musk, and
which we probably point that out.
Depp is friends with Elon Musk. I mean, everyone who's friends are going to have relationship stuff. It could also just be normal, but that's a lot of proximity.
Yeah, proximity. So I had shared with you guys in the private chat earlier, not for this, but on Twitter, that Anita Thompson shared my tweet, and then she deleted it like within 24 hours. And I was like, oh my God, she shared it. But I think what happened is she saw she didn't see the attached tweet probably at first. So I shared this point that I've been telling you guys about Fear and Loathing in Aspen, written and directed by Robert Kennedy the third. And but the thing is like, so if you scroll down here and you look at the attached tweet, I think she didn't see this at first. So if you click on that, so this is like an amazing quote that I found when I was looking at Fear and Loathing on the campaign trail. where I'm just going to read it if you don't mind. Where Hunter S. Thompson says, "I've never been much of a party man myself, and the more I learn about the realities of national politics, the more convinced I am that the Democratic Party is an atavistic endeavor, more of an obstacle than a vehicle, and that there is really no hope of accomplishing anything genuinely new and different in American politics until the Democratic Party is done away with. It is a bogus alternative to the politics of Nixon. How many more of these stinking double-downer sideshows will we have to go through before we can get ourselves straight enough to put together some kind of national election that will give me and at least 20 million people I tend to agree with a chance to vote for something instead of always being faced with that old familiar choice between the lesser of two evils." Incredible to me that this was written in 1972, and as far as I can tell, it's more applicable today than it was then. For him to be saying, how many more of these do we have to sit through in 1972? So it's interesting that this is Hunter S. Thompson's widowed wife, who's like, oh, cool, you're sharing something about Fear and Loathing in Aspen, and she lives at Woody Creek, to this day. But this is my guess, is I don't think she saw that quote and realized, what that's really saying, because I went to look at her profile and I see all this, she's like a Biden Democrat. So it's just like, dude, you and now you're trying to, you shared and now censored what your husband had, his actual views on the Democratic Party back then. It's like, what is she going to say? Oh, this was true in 1972. It's not true anymore. If anything, come on, man. This is where we're at. So,
well, it was Southern Switch 2.0.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
I mean, do you think so? Do you think, because there is, like, the RFK Jr. thing is interesting, but is it literally, you've got the people all surrounding it that just really hate Trump, and is it not just the same thing to switch, to get people to pull votes towards the Democratic Party, and then RFK Jr. steps back? Are you really not concerned that is the normal play? That's what usually happens.
No, I believe he's in it to win it. I do. I've seen the evidence for it. I've read his books. I get a sense of what his ambitions really are, and I believe he's genuine. I think he's given evidence he's genuine from 40 years of his environmental work, which is real work.
Biden or Trump? Who do you think he hates more?
I think he probably hates Biden more for an understandable reason, and then said Biden censored him when it went in a time, but Trump fired him. Trump hired him and fired him right after he got what was essentially a legal bribe from Big Pharma. So, and the timing is impeccable. He gets the money, and then he relinquishes him from the vaccine task force he hired him to lead. And had he kept him on, things probably would have gone differently. And had he not sucked ass to Fauci, we would have been in a different place too. So you can say, oh, he left it to the states, but that EUA that was kept in place, that's as much to do with Trump as it is to do with Biden. He had to keep it in place long enough for it to be rolled out, the mRNA injections, and without liability. It's all, it comes down to liability with emergency use authorization. But it was Biden who had to renew the state of emergency to keep it in long enough for it to go on the child schedule. Because once it was on the child schedule, that also removed liability from manufacturers. That's a big component. They did not want liability for any adverse events. And so, yeah, there's a massive cover up there, and RFK Jr. was blowing the whistle on it. And nobody wanted that. Trump didn't want that. Biden didn't want that. The establishment doesn't, because they're bought by corporate interests. So, there's no question there. So yeah, no, my thing is that I don't think that RFK Jr. is going to win the election. I am so selfish that I just want to see that fucking debate. I want to see a debate. I would love it if it was with Biden or with Trump or with both. Like, I just want to watch that, because that sounds like the most entertaining thing to see. And it's also just, I have kind of a chip on my shoulder for all the people that I want, like, because I see a lot of the things that RFK Jr. is saying, including with synchronicity. Look up RFK Jr. synchronicity and what he has to say. Like, I've never resonated. I'm like, this is coming from somebody who's now in politics, like, saying these things. Like, it's totally crazy in a good way. So, I'm a little selfish. I want to see that fucking debate. And I feel like if that were to happen, all bets are off. Like, for real. Like, you can say what you want to about the Electoral College, and that's understandable, but I don't like voting out of fear. So if people are saying, if the Democrats want to say that they're going to vote for this person who's obviously having major cognitive decline, who is barely capable, it looks like, of tying his shoes, and they're gonna vote for him out of fear of Trump, get fucking real. And a lot of people are voting for Trump as a protest vote, which happened before, which is super understandable because things are so fucked up. But he was given a chance. I think he kept a lot of his campaign promises more than, you know, there was a time where I kind of got into arguments with people a few years back, and I was put in my place because I didn't realize how much of that he actually kept. So I don't have Trump derangement syndrome. And Trump derangement syndrome goes in both fucking directions. You can just do nothing but praise the guy and have no criticisms, or you can he can't do anything right, you know? And like both of those to me feel like a dysfunctional scope on the matter, you know? So yeah, anyway, my spiel. I can get really defensive when I talk about RFK Jr.
I know,
you guys may have noticed because I'm so online all the time fucking debating with people, and a lot of the things that I'm debating against are so tired. I'm just like, dude, you should have known this fucking months ago. Like, how do you still use the word anti-vaxxer?
David doesn't know none of it's real. What do you think about that?
Yeah. No, I think that there's genuine variables out there. And I knew that Bernie,
obviously we assume most of it's not real, but there are probably some genuine variables because human nature exists.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And Bernie was a sheepdog for the DNC. At no point did Bernie ever call out the DNC on the things that Debbie Wasserman Schultz said under oath, and about how the shit is rigged.
Like Hillary Clinton's likability factor is an organic element that came into play. I'm convinced. It was just like, wait, everybody hates her? Everybody?
Yeah. Even the people voting for her fucking hate her.
Yeah, they're like, wow, we can't even get the moms? Like, oh dear, this is gonna be bad. Yeah. I don't know. There's
okay. What did I want to say? I've been following RFK for many years, and he's been just completely consistent and on the whole vaccine subject way before it was cool or like okay. It's still not okay. It's really still not okay actually, because he doesn't even talk about it anymore. He can't. They talk around it, him and his new VP. They never say the word, but they always talk about the chronic illness epidemic and what's causing the chronic illness epidemic, and it's vaccines. That's the word. So anyway,
or not really.
On the one hand,
choose, you know, come on, now I have to do that thing really quickly. Hold on.
Ever wondered about the safety of vaccines?
Thank you.
Right, vacuna. So one guy has that history. The other guy is Trump, and he, like everybody would like to talk about the eclipse that just happened, and the big thing was that the midpoint between the two most recent total eclipses in America, the midpoint between them was the day the vaccine was released, the COVID vaccine was released, but it was also the day it was 666 months after the day Trump turned 19. So it's COVID-19 vaccine, 666 months after Trump's 19th birthday. At the midpoint of the two eclipses, like this guy is like Elon Musk. He's one of these weird people that why are we concerned about these people? Yeah, because they're like running the world, you know, and it's kind of scary. And they might be aliens or what, I don't know.
He doesn't have to talk about this stuff because it's in 2 fucking books that are like basically read like legal documents. It's crazy. It's over the top. It's all out there.
But he got into this race, and I don't know if you remember it, but the New York Times was running a story that says that he had said in private that the COVID had been engineered to spare Ashkenazi Jews and the Chinese or something like that. That story was
right. So if you watch the clip, he's very clear that he says, "I am writing a book on bioweapons." And he's actually citing a study from NIH that you can look up that makes that idea. And so he wasn't even in a private conversation at a small fucking dinner table.
And then 3 weeks later, he's completely pivoted. The other thing he did was praise Roger Waters. Was like, you're one of our great freedom fighters, Roger, back in like last summer. And then a month later, he's disowned all that. He's rabidly pro-Israel. So I'm asking, what happened here?
Right. Well, he's not completely pro-Israel because he says something you'll never hear from Biden and you'll never hear from Trump, which is that the settlements on the West Bank are illegal by both Israeli as well as international law.
Randomly, Biden just said
a number of other things.
Biden was just saying like Netanyahu's approach is not a smart one, and that the interactions with the Gaza kibbutzist, what they call pioneers or whatever.
Right. Well, if he doesn't say that, he has no support. So he will not get Democrats support if he doesn't.
All right. So Blake Lemoine, who's been on the show, and he says all kinds of things. Some of them might even be true, and some of them being that he said, "Look, Haiti is about to happen, and we're going to see Marine boots on the ground in Palestine." I'm like, well, that sounds like Kennedy getting shot with tinfoil. That sounds like kind of crazy, right? And then immediately Haiti was boots on the ground from the Marines and American military in Palestine. So the idea that we're moving towards defending our client state in the Middle East because we need that client state to interact with the Arab Alliance, the United Arab Emirates and everything else, I can see us doing that because Palestine is not itself. It's with the guard of Iran and Egypt. It could be something where there was an actual war between the Arab Alliance and Israel Israel's really small. Israel wouldn't have the manpower to fight a boots on the ground war against every triple alliance country around it unless it used nukes and all sorts of weapons that they've been pretending not to have, which they probably have. So it would probably be in our best interest to go over there and take over Israel, which would be, on one hand, not the kind of optics that the Democratic Party likes to use, but on the other hand, not out of character for something that they would do. So it's actually interesting because Israel is a state that we demand to exist, and we want it to exist a specific way. And we're really good at demanding things. Like if someone doesn't do what we say, we might just force them to. And even if that were Israel, I think that could happen. I think it's not out of the question anymore.
Well, isn't the maybe I oversimplify this, but the U.S.'s relationship with Israel, to me, it's almost when you take your kids out to eat and it's their meal, but if you decide you're hungry enough that you just want to eat everything on their plate, like you paid for the damn plate, you took them there. You know what I mean? So it's almost like
that's why I was glad when Blake brought up the literal political science term client state, because it's more the idea subordinated to a more powerful controlling state. So you think of the Roman client states and Ottoman vassal states, and that's exactly what we've created. We have the idea that a state is necessarily part of the United States. No, not necessarily. And the idea that the United States are even equal, that they're not some client states, not necessarily.
Is Israel just like an angry Puerto Rico?
I mean, Puerto Rico is pretty important. People don't give Puerto Rico the credit it deserves. It's a rich port, you know what I mean? So I think so. But Puerto Rico was a very important military stronghold when we were sea faring beyond airfaring. Now that it's an airfaring military, Israel is even more important. Israel and Iraq are some of the most important places in the world because you can fly in any direction from there and be within 2 or 3 hours. You're anywhere. So the amount of, if you have weapons, if you have missiles, if you have systems that you want to have automatically launched, like the Middle East is a prime location for that to spread out from.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to say something that both Alex and myself have been following RFK Jr. shit for years. And so this is not like when I'm talking about this stuff, I'm just like, I'm coming across people that I'm like, you have not been exposed to what this guy actually has to fucking say. And so it's just like, I got to admit, I'm sorry, guys. I know I immediately go on the defense because I'm just like rolling my eyes so constantly at the things that people say. And I'm just like, dude, have you not gotten that this is...
You're never going to win that argument, though, man. I think I'm an eternal pessimist, but I go back to like Gustave Le Bon, and he writes in like the 1800s about how whenever you have to appeal to the masses, you got to talk to the dumbest person in the crowd every time, all the time.
Yeah, but that hidden hand, bro. I think the main argument I'm hearing from people is like, it's just the same as it's always been. It's not going to be anything different. I mean, like it's a hidden hand kind of character.
That's what we call learned helplessness.
It seems like the rule is if you're a Kennedy, you have to know that they're going to kill you if you don't do exactly what they say. Like you're that much of a Pinocchio.
I think you lean into that.
Right. But there's a difference between a martyr that's doing everything they can to do what they believe is right, and if they should happen to die in the process, versus a martyr who's literally like a suicide bomber, who's like, I'm doing this for this reason. And so, you know, with the Kennedys, it's one thing, but this is a particular person. Like, we can say, yes, he's a Kennedy, but like he has the track record that he has. He had 14 years of addiction, followed by after his father was assassinated, followed by 40 years of being an environmental lawyer with great success over like real shit. And so it's funny because, like, you know, he cleaned up the Hudson and he was loved by the Democrats. And then he starts talking about vaccines and listening to mothers, and all of a sudden he's turned into the fucking, you know, just this there's just so much slander. It's like, and it's funny because the media did the same thing with Trump. But if you look at those emails that came, the WikiLeaks, from John Podesta to the group email and shit to the DNC, and they're just like laying out their strategy, and they're like, we have our Pied Piper, quote unquote, candidate, Donald Trump. They actually named Ted Cruz as well. And we're just like, basically, we're going to help run these people. We want these people to run because we want to because we need somebody like this to make our guy look better, because they know their guy isn't really coming with much. And so I'm seeing the same thing happen with Biden. He's just got so little charisma or anything. So they're just like, you know, we need to have somebody that's extreme enough to make our candidate look good. It's just such an old strategy that just feels like they're still pulling this off. It's crazy.
Hear me out. Hear me out.
Shiva has a beef with RFK Jr., which I think is interesting because Dr. Shiva is the inventor of email, but also vaccine maker. Shiva owns a pharmaceutical company, Cytosolve, the partner with vaccine and drug. We're gonna have him on the show, I think Saturday. The world's number 4 vaccine maker, Pfizer. Shiva's attacks on our movement, calculated pandering, blah 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 blah, according to these groups. What do you guys think about that? I mean, do you guys know anything about Dr. Shiva? Like, have you looked into him yet?
No.
Sure.
I mean, he's interesting. I mean, he's I think, but yeah, in the scope of things, since Biden is against Trump in the ring, it seems like in the lower rings, it's like Shiva against RFK Jr. And I wouldn't say that like RFK Jr. is really necessarily anti-vaccine either. No. He's more, about being careful with technology and environmental, catastrophes, right?
Well, he wants vaccines to go through the same process that other medications do at the very least, and for there to not have no liability for adverse
effects. He doesn't want a 3 Mile Island China syndrome with the vaccine.
Totally.
Which is funny because that's literally what happened. I like it.
Yeah. So,
I've got a theory that I want to put forth since we were talking Wonka earlier, and I read that part of the initial version of Gene Wilder's Wonka, that it was kind of improvised, where he like walks up and he's almost acts like he's really feeble, and then he tumbles over, and then when he pops up in the action, I guess the premise was that he wanted you to feel like you couldn't trust anything that happened. Like, he lied to you just before he even opened his mouth. He constructed this entire reality, and then he destroyed it, and then he created a new one. And what if that is Biden's approach? What if his approach is that the first 4 years was him as like the feeble Wonka, and right as they go and like we transition and the election season starts, he does the tumble,
open and a lizard cockroach alien comes out. And he's like,
I mean, think about it though. It would seem like I know it seems fanciful, but it's not a reality that seems like a zero chance.
But if you put one more staple in his head, it might save his life. It might kill him. So who knows? It's worth finding out.
Well, you had 3 brain aneurysms before, like, 1985. And
he had the good kind.
He had the good kind. But anyway, I think that whatever the case, even if you're not talking about the future, you're talking about just now, Thomas, you're right on point, because that is exactly what happened with the State of the Union, is that people expected so little from him that you just give this guy a little bit of Adderall and boom, you're impressed. It makes something that otherwise wouldn't be impressive, because you're just expecting, all the Democrats are so concerned over if he can even, because he declined a cognitive test right before that. And it's like, and then the press secretary is over there saying, "Oh yeah, well, we know that he's got good cognitive ability because look at all these decisions he's making and what he's doing." It's like, yeah, but he refused to take the cognitive test. Like, that's not a good look, to say the least, you know? So, yeah.
Can't trust those cognitive tests. They're just trying to prove he's actually conservative. Arizona Supreme Court. You guys really want to do this? I don't know. Arizona Supreme Court is banning nearly all abortions. Let's have 4 men talk about this for a second, maybe.
I think there should be subway cards for abortions, and I don't know how it should work. If it should be every 10th one's free, or if it should be you have to get sterilized after every 3. But like, I think just having a
hard system is important. That's what matters. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, there's a bigger issue at play here, that women are like having to get abortions in the first place, many of them based on their economic ability. So if the economy is doing super fucking poorly, and not just the economy, people's lives are fucking hard, and then you're telling you know, like, maybe they wouldn't be feeling like they would need to have this many abortions if there was a better world to bring their children into that's surrounding them. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. I think that's kind of a bit there's bigger issues at play, I guess.
I think it's a huge, you know, since we're bringing it up, just because you look at like Iceland and Finland and Denmark and places where they have social reforms for single mothers or for mothers and families in general. Because why only for single mothers? Why not? If you're going to make a taxpayer, then why not invest in the creation of that taxpayer so that they can make enough money that you're paying more taxes? I mean, this is, you know, utilitarian even for a state to care about producing better citizens. And what are the plans for Arizona? Because if you reduce the amount of people having kids, is the intention to move in new people to Arizona? Like, are they moving in new populations in 5 or 10 years that are Muslim or Catholic or Mormon? Like, what is the plan? Like, where are these new taxpayers coming from? Are you going to just have an empty Arizona again? I don't think that's the plan, is it?
Good question, though. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like it's an issue that isn't as ethical as people make it out to be. You know, like, the ethics are important and lives are at risk and all that, but really it's more about the taxpayers and like what system that they're social engineering, because they're saying, okay, well, we're going to change the population here this way.
Well, they're also, the future of abortion is probably abortion pills, and the idea of making it into a surgical thing is probably ultimately on its way out, and the pharmaceutical companies know that. And so, you know, my prediction is that within the next 5 years, probably, that's going to become more of the topic is abortion by pill or something similar.
I mean, you can have like nanobots, right? And like little nanobots essentially do the surgical part, but does it in such a seamless and like a way that you wouldn't really have any kind of invasive aspect to it, right?
Yeah, that's my thing. Is I come across anything like this, I'm always like, well, what's the pharmaceutical angle, and what is the predictions for investment and where they want to go with things? So, you know, I think that maybe the way that we relate to abortion, the way it's generally been, is probably not going to be the way that it exists in the future.
Is it more ethically like pure if it comes from Pfizer? If like the pill, if you get like a Pfizer pill to take care of the
I don't know, man, but
child.
I mean, my conspiracy theory around the vaccine stuff is that it's going to make people infertile, and that was part of the intention. And then that would explain why Bill Gates said that this was going to lower the population, and how he could rationalize that in a humane way, but in his view, in a humane way, by just basically making it so that people can't have children, and men too, making it so that their sperm isn't able to do its job, you know. But beyond that, you know, I mean, that's just, I see that everywhere. Like, I see that with the trans stuff too. It's just like, what is the other pharmaceutical angle to this? And also just this kind of idea that we have too many people, and people who are really concerned with overpopulation, you know, with the lengths that they'll go to make money, and at the same time get the job done as the way they see is the ethical thing in their eyes. Yeah, there she's, yeah.
I mean, her boobs are pretty big. Is this like Alex Jones suggested this was an all meat diet. I don't know if that's the case or if that's just like epigenetics from being a Viking. But the European court ruled that human rights violation was occurred by climate inaction. I find this interesting. So they're saying that states and corporations have not done enough to fight climate change. And so that's a human rights violation. So they have to force those states all around the world to enact legislation, which is, you know, like carbon taxes and things like that, because your human rights have been violated by them not taxing your carbon.
Right. You know,
we just need inconvenient truth version 2. It's all we need, and we'll snap back into place.
Isn't there just like this reoccurring thing of that you have an infrastructure problem, and then eventually we see it being put on the public that there's things we need to do that's our fault that we need to fix that were clearly a bigger issue. It's like us having 1 million more hospital beds in the 1970s than we have now, with millions more people existing now, and then we're being told that this is our fault and we need to we need to do whatever they say so that we're not taking up the needed hospital beds. It's like I always kind of see this thing, and so like, yeah, oil companies need to be held to account, like for reals. But my concern when I'm hearing like the carbon thing is, I'm like, they're going to use this I was saying this last week, they're going to use this for surveillance, for an excuse for surveillance on every fucking person living, and it's global too. We're not just talking about America, and this is also China.
How much did you fart today, sir? That's going to be an extra $5.
Yeah, for real though. It's like the fucking
they're gonna change your diet. Like, we noticed you farted too much today. Now you have to eat nothing but bean sprouts.
Yeah,
that might not help.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I recently saw like one of the maps that's like showing supposedly how the sea levels are going to change. It's like a map of the world, and like above this certain latitude or whatever, it's bad. It's going to be burnt. But I saw it, and I always think that everything they tell us is always it's an inversion of the truth. So I kind of I'm not really expecting global warming. I'm expecting another ice age to come and probably freeze the whole all of New York and all this stuff. So, in 100 years, 200, 300, 400, not tomorrow, but
right. Have you ever gotten the flu when you got chills, Alex?
Yeah.
There you go.
Sure.
Well, we're an ecosystem, right?
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. I don't know what you mean by that.
I mean that when people like, this is why like people say global warming, but maybe a more appropriate thing to just say is like when you're talking about climate change, that you have like the jet stream, you have the wet, it's very unpredictable ultimately. I mean, maybe we have AI that's able to see these things, but yeah, I think that there's something to be said for natural intelligence, like the intelligence that's implicit in nature, that it kind of does its own thing, and sometimes something will seem counterintuitive, but it's just because that's the way it operates. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess what I wanted, my final thing there was that it seemed like they're telling everybody, like, wouldn't that be a devious trick? To kill everybody would be to get everybody to go into this certain part of the planet, say, oh, this is where it's gonna be. You got to be here to be safe, and then it turns out that that's where you go to die. That's, I don't know. That's just a conspiracy theory on my point. But I'm really a conspiracy theorist at heart. So I really relate and sort of think about HARP. That the whole thing, and Joseph Farrell's and the weather control, because like I pretty much am certain that they direct earthquakes and tornadoes and these things can steer them to perfection, I'm sure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm also a conspiracy theorist at heart for real, and I have been for a really long time. And so that's one of my issues is like, I used to tell my parents conspiracy theory shit all the time when I was growing up, especially in my teens, and they just scoff at me, laugh at it. And then now, wow, my parents are like, especially my mom is like a big Trump supporter, and she is just like conspiracied out. And now I'm like, Mom, listen to me now. Like, you're going to tell me the conspiracy. I've been at this for a while, man. Like, come on. And so, yeah, it's kind of, but not even just my folks. It's just like in general, I see a lot of people like kind of like jumping into this, and then I'm seeing the things that they're saying. I'm like, no, it's actually, it's way more nuanced and complex than that,
And probably worse too. It's like,
we're definitely moving, like you said, though, the surveillance thing. I mean, you look at like family security footage, the Airbnb camera disclosure policies, the P. Diddy footage. Google's Nest Secure is shutting down yesterday, I think, or something, or today. It's the end. This is the last day of Google's Nest Secure system. But Google invested like a lot of money and bought like a quarter of ADT security company. And so now ADT is going to like take over. They're going to have like a security company that they own part of, which includes, ADT has instead of just calling the police, they send a security company that they have, like their own security force. So it's like Google could turn ADT into Blackwater at this point, you know, because not hard to do. Not hard to do.
If that were like a monthly service and it's like have your home protected by Blackwater for like $70 a month.
That exists right now. You know what I mean? I remember like First Alarm was created by like the brother of the mayor in Santa Cruz. Isn't that right? And so the deal was like, you can't tell people, this is a long time ago. Now you can do anything. It used to be, you couldn't tell people, hey, you're not allowed to walk through here. Like, and now you can. You just be like, oh, this is the corporation of Aptos and you're in the, you know, market, like strip mall. This is all private property that's owned by the commerce. It's not owned by the public. You're trespassing. But
right. And now you get into BlackRock from there and Blackstone, which BlackRock owns. So people will be like, oh, BlackRock isn't buying up all the single family housing. And you're like, no, the company that they own is. Like, come on. It's like, it's so crazy. And so, and then that connects to Israel too. And so, and along with Vanguard. And so I'm like, this is really, really something. Like it matters more than what you say about a place if you're going after the people that are actually influencing things. Like that's a matter of the perspective. Like you shouldn't have to badmouth anybody if you're in litigation against the people who are influencing it. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to go there because you're already doing the thing that matters. It's like a Hydra. You're just like, they're like, oh, why aren't they cutting off the heads of this Hydra? It's like, no, they're going for the base. You know?
I mean, or they want more heads for their Hydra. You know, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
On the security thing, I really do feel like the trajectory that we're going to be headed towards, it's going to be kind of like how the reason it's illegal to have really tinted windows isn't because it obscures your vision, is because the cops admit that they want to be able to see what's going on.
They don't want you to flip them off when you're driving past them and them not to know that you're flipping them off.
They want to see the silhouette. But I think that security cameras are going to start to be like, you're going to want cameras on you because the alternative is that now the state is going to use AI to like assume what you're doing behind closed doors. So if you don't have something to prove that like, no, we weren't, you know, manufacturing meth, we were just watching Double Dare or something, like you actually want to have security cameras all over the place pointed at you constantly as your alibi.
Well, we were actually watching Breaking Bad, but yeah. Sorry. Did you guys see, like, I was like right before the call, I was looking at what Edward Snowden is sharing on Twitter. If you could check that out, because it's just relatable to what we're talking about. Apparently there's some big things at play in terms of surveillance happening at this moment, and who better than Edward Snowden to go off about it. This might not, is this it? I'm looking at his Twitter, what he is sharing about oh yeah, check this out. Just scroll down. You're gonna see, where's the FISA? There it is. Yeah, I mean he's doing it all from every angle right now. But I spell this week. The 702. Do you guys know about this?
No.
Should not be allowed to. So they're playing games right now with saying that they can spy on people without a warrant. And Edward Snowden is doing his classic thing of being like, yeah, you know what? That shouldn't be legal. And if somehow you're saying it is, there's something really fucked up here. So, yeah, I can't do this whole thing justice. I was trying to read up on it before the call, but yeah.
702 bill. Let's look at this a bit. Foreign surveillance enacted 2008 to expand government capacity to conduct surveillance on suspected foreign terrorists. Future of America's biggest spy program is being decided right now. The United States government, like its rivals in Moscow, Beijing, have poured untold millions of dollars into quietly turning the phones and internet browsers of its own citizens into a powerful intelligence gathering tool. Shadowy deals between the federal agencies and commercial data brokers have helped the U.S. intelligence system to amass a large amount of what its own experts term intimate information on Americans. Most U.S. citizens are in the dark as to the true scope and scale of the surveillance that they're under. Mike Johnson, whose brief tenure as speaker has been roiled by an ongoing debate over domestic intelligence abuses, previously supported several privacy measures that now in power he's working to defeat, including strong new limits on government access to private data. Johnson's working to resolve the lingering issue of reauthorizing Section 702, a key foreign surveillance program authorized by the Congress to target terrorists, cyber criminals, narcotic traffickers, and overseas. The program is set to expire April 19th. Okay, so this is the Patriot Act of our.
Yeah, so it looks like it's just an extension of PRISM, which is what Edward Snowden exposed in the first place and what made him into a quote-unquote criminal. So this is the thing that, like, if you're watching like a movie from like the 90s or something, and there's like the person that's like, I got him on record, I got the evidence to show that they're doing this fucking thing, you know, and you'd be like, that's the end of the movie. You're like, oh, we got him. And now it's like, no, they're going to arrest the guy who exposed it and say that they're the criminal. And so, yeah, I mean, it's even, to me, what happened with Edward Snowden is even more extreme than what happened with Julian Assange. Like, Julian Assange, like, yeah, it's fucked up and he should be released. But like Edward Snowden is, like, to me, the clearest case of like, come on. What did he do wrong? You know, oh, he went against protocol. What the fuck?
Aaron Swartz would be another example of that sort of.
It says here, we are here. Mike Turner told the House committee, because the Intelligence Committee failed us, the FBI failed us, the Intelligence Committee failed to properly police themselves, and they abused the tools that we gave them under FISA. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, this is like what RFK has been talking about as well. I mean, yeah, it'd be interesting to see in 10 days if they voted in again. They're probably going to, I mean, it would be crazy not to have some hyper surveillance system like every other state, right? Every other authoritarian state. They just mentioned like Russia and China and everything.
China more than anywhere, yeah.
Russia has a pretty good system because they demand all of their servers be in Russia for Russian sites, so they can. They do know what's going on in Russia. You know what I mean? They're not as concerned about what's going on overseas because they're not policing overseas. The Chinese are. The Chinese are policing in places like Canada and South America and places where, you know, in East countries where they have their 200 leases. Well, there are places where they have 200-year leases and they monitor the people that they have living in their place, their domains, right? If you have a 200-year lease of a place, you're generationally invested in that place. Probably more than a lot of people in that state, you know? So they've got reasons to police. So the idea that the United States would somehow turn over and turn off a system like that seems really dangerous, right? Like I feel like that would be the argument that they'll make. Like not having that system is more dangerous than abusing the power of the system. The worst thing that could happen is innocent people get hurt, right? But that's compare that to like millions of or hundreds of millions of Americans being under the wing of some other government than the one that they run. I mean, that's what they're worried about.
Right, but then you have the issue of basically this one massive superpower emerging that isn't just one place. Where, you know, that's globalism. That's the goal. Like it's a catch-22 though, because as you know, that you have to have this or you'll have endless wars and we're going to destroy ourselves. But when we do have it, it's going to be, you know, a few nations dominating the rest of the world through military strength and surveillance. So yeah, it's
Starlink.
It'll just be AI. AI will hit a point in Russia, China, and America where they're like, all right, look, humans had these goals. They're confused about how to get them. Clearly, they're like not able to just stop fighting. Let's just force them to stop fighting and interact with each other, and we'll tell people what to do. I mean, that's all we need, right? This idea that these states are going to maintain control over these surveillance systems is a lot to ask. I don't see that as making the most sense perpetually. Eventually, the systems get out of their control because it's just data. Data is information, and people start to learn that data. And then even 100th monkey happens. People start to know that data because other people know that data. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, will you go to my page for a second? I want to show a tweet, so you can keep talking. I just want to.
David M in the comments says, "How come the China police can't stop fentanyl? Fentanyl is being, distributed to basically to get rid of it's a class thing, and so they know that people will accept the fentanyl deaths because, well, that's it's just it seems like mass murder to me." And that's kind of like there's a way to rationalize it in people's minds, just like with heroin or something, where you're like, well, they had that coming if that's what they were doing. So I'm definitely minded to believe that kind of conspiracy thinking around that one, that this is actually an intentional killing off of people with that. Sorry. but especially the homeless in particular, you know. Yeah, sucks to say, but I think it's true.
Yeah, like why is the fentanyl? What are the Chinese supposed to do about Biden and the cartels? Come on, it's a silly question.
There are a couple retweets, a QAnon retweet that I did a couple days ago. I brought up because somebody in the chat was alerted me to a little sync there with Q, and I just want to read a couple of them, which I think it's really close to the top. It's just like a few down from there. Not that one, not that one, not that one. After this, okay, here we go. Well, yeah. This was 2018. Drop 2037 arrived 42 plus 42 weeks after Trump's inauguration at 15:31:53 Eastern. I was just like, wow, that's cute. And there's a bunch of stuff with Q. So if people are interested, I mean, I don't have
people that aren't seeing it, like 153, 153, 15.
Yeah, which is, and it's also 33. I mean, it's 3.
But what's the significance of this Q drop with this number sequence? Excuse my ignorance.
Well, it's just an example of the confluence of synchronicity and like.
Right, but what is this double exclamation point MG7V?
Oh, that's just the
image,
the stamp or whatever. The data
random
string.
But the idea that Q drops were so there's perfect,
well coordinated.
Yeah, it's like a Pokemon Go game. Like, wow, did everyone go here and see at this time there was that thing? And then they're like, now wait.
And I mean,
watch the TV. You're gonna see the background of that plane from the drop, and it's like so everyone's like engaged, like Captain Midnight or some radio show in the 30s.
And the other, if you can go scroll down a couple more things on my page, there's one that I forgot. The other thing was that Donald Trump on the day of that tweeted out at 2:37. So it's like double whammy. And yeah, so it yeah, I was wondering if like are they basing this stuff off the stuff that I'm doing? Like, are they reading my Twitter and then fucking with me on it?
No, I mean, like I thought as it was happening a few years ago, I was like, wow, this is just it plays so well into the sync book stuff, and I was really kind of bummed out by the Secret Son because Knowles
destroyed the sync book. Actually,
they were just so autistic. Like, oh no, like the things that we believe in are becoming real, or I don't know what it was. It's really weird now because Knowles has become like a boomer poster on Twitter where he's just like, hey, remember how cool things were in the 80s, which I love. I'm not against these posts, but he's still like, it's weird because I'm like, dude, you don't remind me of yourself. Like I love you now, but like I don't know how to wrestle with the fact that you're better than you were when this all started and you destroyed your own group on purpose when it could have had the most potential for good and impact on the world. That's my grievance. But the idea that the QAnon drops were like, wow, here you have a group of people, like who's the audience for this? You know what I mean? There's like, this is designed that you have people reviewing the content and people watching the reviews of the content, reacting. This is literally built around social media. It's the perfect media publicity treasure hunt, like these game shows that corporations did in the 50s. Like, we're going to have a treasure hunt and the girl's going to tell you to go here and go there. It's amazing the amount of work that went into that. I feel like no one gives it that kind of credit because they're saying, oh, it's real or it's fake. Like, no, like it can be a little bit of both. And
I think it was extremely sophisticated psy-op.
Yeah, it's sophisticated, but saying it's a sophisticated psy-op also, it's a really impressive game show. It's like Legend of the Hidden Temple. It's like Truth or Don't You on Nickelodeon.
And it's ongoing. It's not over just because he stopped posting. That's the thing. Like, it's still ongoing. What's funny is he doesn't have to post. People can just say Delta, and that means that, like,
Do you guys think that this is more your area than it is mine? Do you think that Q is the head of 8chan?
No, I think that the 8chan guy did help with it though. Like, his story that he like sold out and like walked away. I think that there, the idea that QAnon isn't like whatever became of QAnon changed. Like there's like this very much the very earliest posts are right before the election, and you know, during that week. And then all of a sudden things shift by 2018, 2017, 2018. It's now like really ingrained, and it feels like it's a rebranding of the movement by this, you know, government psyop thing, which is now turning it into a honeypot.
It's official. It officially started in 2017. That's where the current like thing starts.
But there was, to be fair, like the
it
week
kind of emerged
the election,
from
basically the week of the election, there were drops on
right,
4chan, and they were saying, look, here's the deal, Pizzagate, Hillary Clinton, here's all the map evidence. We're fighting this thing. It's going to be a crazy week, but trust us, it's going to be a crazier 4 years. And everyone's like, wait, what is this? And that was all before the QAnon movement. You know what I mean? Because then you have a bunch of people that follow that meme, and they're all analyzing it, and people are following analyzers of the data, and that's building momentum. By 2017, you have we did the Pray Against Pedophiles or something like that. There was like a movement where everyone around the world at like 3 p.m. in California, like noon in New York, 3 p.m. in California, like there's a whole thing. Everyone was supposed to like focus on that because it was simultaneous to the Wiccans, or I don't know if Wiccans are even the right term, but there was a group of like techno-pagans that were involved with the Secret Sun and the Synctank, and they were anti-Trump, and they created a spell that was the anti-Trump praying spell. And all of these publications were saying, look at this, ha ha ha, these liberal witches that are making a witch's prayer against Trump, and here is the ritual in case you wanted to join in, ha ha ha. It's like, wait, clearly this is like, you know, we're at this is so early on too, because now we've all been inundated with this, you know, and interacting. But it was like, yeah, this is the way the world is, you know, right now. If you're in California, this is how people behave. If you're not from California, you shouldn't be in this chat room. And it was just that all came out of that moment, you know?
Oh, wow. Yeah, totally. I see the Q thing as an extension of like the same thing that happened with Publius Enigma. And I've said this before, but it's like that early Pink Floyd message board shit where it was like, you know, somebody's sharing very cryptic little blurps, and then people are trying to understand it and analyze it, and then they want proof. They're like, how do we know you're legit? And he's like, on this date, at this time, flashing lights, you'll see. And then there's like the concert, and it says across the concert, it says Publius Enigma. I think it was in Australia. And people are like, whoa, it's the guy the random dude on the message board. Now it says it here. And then Pink Floyd would later say that it was a publicity stunt. But what's the difference between a psyop and a publicity stunt? You know what I mean? Like, where's the line there? So
government versus corporate, that's pretty much the difference.
Right. Well, this is the thing too. So talking about like the P. Diddy stuff that's happening right now, like I was saying, as soon as I saw that lawsuit, I was like, this is going to fucking explode, because it's a lawsuit. And if the shit checks out, if this goes somewhere, like, you know, people could actually be held to account potentially. Whereas like with Pizzagate, it was oh, we got
good. I just wanted to make sure people knew. Celebrate. Yeah. Everyone get in there. All right.
With Pizzagate, we had a situation where it was like a bunch of online researchers coming, and then we got gaslit. And so it's like, I thought that they were going to argue in their own defense that they all had a really dark sense of humor, but that's not what happened. They just gaslit everybody and said, no, there's nothing to this. But there was,
which is weird. You're like, if you live in California, New York, or Florida, God forbid, and you know people that were human trafficked children, they were child sex prostitutes, they were human furniture. I don't know how many people you know were human furniture, but there's a thing for that. And it's like, it's weird to then tell those people, because those are the people that we're all like, and people that I have known those people. So I'm like, okay, yeah, obviously this is happening. And now the gaslight is that it's not happening. You're not only telling me that it's not happening, right. You're telling all these people that have been literally like, teenage girls were used as lamps. They just had to stand there naked and hold a light for a judge. You got to understand, like, gaslighting that is weird.
Crazy but real shit. It was on their own social media accounts. There was no like, how are they going to explain this? And then Anthony Weiner went on some show, and all he wanted to talk about was the guy who shot the floor with the shotgun and apparently destroyed the hard drive for Comet Pizza at the same time. Like, I'm like, oh well, that, you know, whatever. The point is that I saw the P. Diddy stuff coming out, and I'm like, this probably implicates or whatever Obama. Because Obama was talking about, I went to these parties at P. Diddy's place. Like, it's it's on record, and it's I mean, not just him, but like all of these people for so many years. So I'm just like, I think that this could really explode, you know, as it goes through its process, because unlike Pizzagate, this isn't the court of public opinion. This is the actual court, which can be corrupt too. So we'll see. But it has more potential to expose a lot of what's been going on, I think.
Did you guys feel like it was weird? Like with South Park, I always, you know, expect South Park to do one thing and it often does another. And I should maybe know better because it's a pretty mainstream show. But I mean, the Splatty Tomatoes episode. So you've got this whole arc with Mr. Garrison becoming Trump. He becomes the president, and they're thinking like, oh man, this is a joke. And then it actually happens. Then they say that the writers freaked out and they didn't know what to do because they didn't expect it to actually happen. I feel like it was pretty expectable the last month or so or two that he was going to be Trump, like the president. But the Splatty Tomatoes thing, the fact that the
can you explain to me what it is?
All about the basement with the tomatoes, and then the entire community comes out and they find, you know, that Trump is alone and isolated in the woods, and they're all trying to stop him, you know, because the entire community is out against him except for the whites. This one family, the whites.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that not real? Do you feel like that's exactly what happened? This is a psy-op that pokes at, I mean, it's very useful for somebody who wants to be the hero, but it pokes at everybody all at once and everything they're doing, and even out of context, right? Because it's like from the context of the pitchfork wielding serf, not from, you know, the vampiristic lords.
Right. Well, I mean, just to be clear on the basement thing.
You're trying to make me play that song, aren't you? I can't believe you doing it. All right, very good. Thank you. Everyone, join.
Bragged in a magazine. The owner of the restaurant bragged in a magazine of their fresh ingredients that they kept in their very large basement, and it was explicit. And then they denied that they had a basement at all. And so the guy shows up there, just totally, you know, paranoid, freaking out, like, show me the basements, you know. But at the same time, it's like, dude, like,
paranoid American.
And he became representative of everybody who had a question about their lie, because they were lying one way or the other. Either they lied about having a basement or they lied about not having a basement. The fact is, they lied. And so that's where it's gaslighting, because you're like, and then to expect that nothing would come of that is kind of absurd, you know. But they used him as the scapegoat to just point to that this is the mentality of these people that are questioning this thing that we lied about. And so yeah, it's very convoluted.
Monsters. I don't know, but they have cool clothes, and the oyster pizza sauce was really good. Alex, what were you about to say?
I completely forgot.
So, you know, Kill Tony? You know the show Kill Tony? Thomas probably does. You know that show? So, you know that fucking Joe Rogan has been on it in the past, but he took on Tucker Carlson the other day on To Kill Tony. So Bill was telling me about this, and I saw a little clip of it. But apparently they like bring up the like Obama dick sucking thing, and freaking Tucker Carlson basically, I mean, this is a comedy show, so he can kind of get away with this, but he says it's true. So this was last night, I think, or super recently. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, good. But I think what it is that you know, this stuff is coming out with P. Diddy, and it's Sliver, man. They videotaped everything for years, and were blackmailing people with what they recorded. And so, like, you know, who knows about scopolamine or whatever the hell is going on? But you know, there's probably something to that. And so it looked to me that Tucker was just like, I'm just gonna, from what I understand, it's like Tucker's just like, well, I'm just gonna say it because, you know, of course he wants to be, if something does come out about this as this court proceeding continues, he'll be like, the people can point to it and be like, oh yeah, look, he called it, you know. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, that actually makes Obama the first gay and black president, right? Doesn't that just add to his credit?
I think we've had other gay presidents, not black presidents.
Gay black
or half black.
Probably have black presidents.
Well, maybe he was half gay too.
I remember what I was going to say, which was bringing up this like a really great sync. I mean, we're talking about syncs here. It's leave it to South Park, but it's the from the Royal Wedding episode of South Park, which was called Royal Pudding, and is it's actually season 15, episode 3 for the 153, and the whole plot is that the princess, which is based on Kate Middleton, who had just gotten married at the time, she gets abducted by, well, it's a mystery, but then it turns out to be like she gets abducted by the spirit of tooth decay.
Oh yeah.
And it's so there's just, I don't even know. But then when she gets abducted by this big cube, like this big cube appears in like a box, kind of at the end of Mission Impossible 5 or whatever. They just get sucked into there and just disappeared. So the cube, Brian Christopher asked, what is 153? And that's I mean, that's the second of the 5 numbers that I repeatedly talk about in my work, and it's biblical, John 21:11. It's a very important number.
Gematria wise,
for many reasons, but yeah, just like pure math, it's like got lots of weird features. Like can't bring any off on the top of my head, but like it's got, just Google curious properties of 153, and there's just like pages of, it's like a key number. It's also related to the cycles of the moon. I think it's like the square root of 153 is the number of lunations in a year, which is also like 12.37 thereabouts. So yeah, 153 is a big.
I feel like I remember that in William Sterling's book, The Canon. I think he talked about that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, royal pudding, and then royal pudding. That's. I think you were gone when I was talking about that. Did you hear that, Andreas? Have you seen that episode where that's based on the royal wedding, where Kate, the Canadian version of the, she gets abducted by a big cube, and then it's the spirit of tooth decay, which I'm like wondering what is that? That's to do with dentistry, something? Because like,
I was just pulling up that. Did you get the meme when you're talking about it? Sorry, I don't talk sometimes. I like to just show the images. So in the South Park episode about the first grade play, they do a play, and Mr. Mackey is losing his mind. To be right. And then the kids are like, it's just a play. He's like, no, it's not just a play, okay? It's really important. It's tooth decay. And like everyone's like, what is his problem? And like, so all these kids are trying to get the lines right, and they're trying to do the play perfectly, but they don't understand like the deeper meaning of it. And the deeper meaning is that tooth decay got his father when he was young. And they finally, and they've never caught tooth decay. They never like actually stopped tooth decay. And all of a sudden, near the end of the episode, they finally catch the guy. They finally catch tooth decay. So they got him. They got him. Oh, they got him. And so it's more than just, it's about tooth decay. It's about something that happened to him as a kid, and his memories of, probably being molested, right? Like it kind of is like the amount of drama being thrown aroround about this idea of tooth decay.
Personal trauma.
Like he was molested by Woody Owl, right? Or
because he's crying at the end, and he's holding people because he's like what tooth decay did to him as a child. Like it seems like that's the metaphor there. And so that also plays into, I mean, maybe there's something more there with gingivitis and old pedophiles. I have no idea, but it does, I think, with the idea.
Well, I was thinking about dentistry, because dentistry is such a it's like a sus profession, like whenever Charles Manson's going to his dentist,
right?
I mean, all of my
stuff in their teeth.
An ex-girlfriend's parents were dentists.
McVeigh's a big dentist.
Using dentistry as a method of getting an access to drugs. Like that is a thing that happens with dentists. But also
inherent vice is that
Jack Nicholson visiting the dentist in the Plant, was that movie? The Plant,
little shop of
horrors, right? He's like,
Steve Martin is the dentist. Steve Martin's with it,
right? I feel like there's some weird thing. Inherent Vice, Little Shop of Horrors, A Serious Man, something to all of that.
That guy Stuhlbarg, a Serious Man actor, just got. Did you see that story about getting thrown a rock thrown at him?
There's nothing worse. There's actually the scariest thing is Jack Nicholson in the masochist going to the dentist.
Mr. Mackey. Sorry.
Yeah. Wait, did you say that Steve Martin? No, Steve Martin's in the new one, you're saying, not in the original.
No, he's the dentist. Oh, you're looking at I'm talking about the 80s, the 1980s.
Okay, yeah, Jack Nicholson.
I didn't realize Jack Nicholson was in this, actually.
And he gets homoerotic pleasure, sadomasochistic pleasure from the suffering of his teeth being drilled.
Right. He's playing part Bill Murray played in the 80s.
And in the whole dental amalgams, silver mercury, the stuff they would drill and put into your teeth is gets poison. It's gonna kill you eventually.
Yeah, like Catholicism.
And it's probably alchemical reasons for them drilling that stuff into our teeth. So If you have those, get them out of your mouth, please.
Well, that's how Lucille Ball stopped World War II.
Oh, tell me more.
Not in the Communist parties. Keep going.
No, it wasn't actually World War II. Yeah, but there was you haven't heard this story where she was driving near a military base and claims that she was intercepting like, I guess, enemy messages through the fillings in her teeth, and went and reported it to the military, and it even claimed that there was like some bust ups because of this information, and then it leads into like UFO claims and stuff. Yeah.
That I could almost believe to an extent, unproven.
So unproven. Snopes is on the fence, then we have
definitely true though. Like the thing is with Lucille Ball, right? Like she got they told everyone like, oh man, you know, like she's just a clown, and they're like, no, actually, she's a secret communist who has communist parties, and like at night, like these people, these Hollywood celebrities are meeting at her houses to have these communist parties, and they're like, no way, but they were. And so then they found out that also her grandfather and her father had been like major communists, and she was a member of the Communist Party. And she's like, oh, I just joined because my father was a member. And she was married to Desi Arnaz, who like the mafia tried to kill, but Frank Sinatra's wife was super into, so she had him spared. And so there's the conservative Cuban thing. But the conservative Cuban thing, like when you understand like the height of the elite, they're the ones building like the Rockefellers are the elite.
Are you saying she didn't really pick up these messages in her fillings?
I'm saying she definitely picked up these messages one way or another. And if that she had to tell the American people it was her fillings and that they believed it because she was a clown, then she's just as brilliant as George W. Bush. You know, she's able to pretend to be the fool, you know, and she, you know, like what does she care what other people think of her? They're the fools, right? That's
she was smart. She's a smart lady. That
Lucifer Ball, bro.
Yeah. Did you guys see the Nicole Kidman movie biopic on Lucille Ball with that whole
I did.
thing you're describing?
Did not.
And I had to watch. I had to know. I felt like it was a horrible casting to put Nicole Kidman into that role, but at the same time, Nicole Kidman did it as good as Nicole Kidman could do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, but it shouldn't have been Nicole Kidman.
There was like a '90s version that was pretty good on TV. I don't know if I'll ever watch this, but I mean, this is adorable. This is their version of the story. Oh my gosh, I don't know. Yeah. Oscar-worthy performances. Ouch.
I think unironically, everyone in this movie should have been black, especially since Lucille Ball's a redhead.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I mean, you know, she was an interesting character though. Hyper alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
The whole Smollett family, Journey, Jussie, all of them.
I wish people were more into the idea though of like 1950s, like female actresses being spies, because you think about it, it's the perfect time. Like you're like, hey, look, we're going to send you on the USO show, and you're going to go to this country and you're going to just make people laugh. That's why are you here? I'm here to make people smile. I mean, can you find a better agent? Like it's like the perfect cover.
Word.
Ongoing.
It's funny when you say that. I'm visualizing Apocalypse Now, like, but she's like, you know, yeah. Never mind. It's for the boy.
I'm struggling for the name of the movie where it was the game show host that would like travel with the contestants to different countries, and that was a
dangerous mind.
Yeah, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, I believe.
And it's the guy who did the Gong show, and that's from his autobiography. So he made those.
Probably he had to publish that
supposedly.
You know, they're probably some of the information came out about it, and he's like, "Look, that's what I'll do is I'll tell everyone that way they'll think it's not true, because there's too much information. Someone's going to figure it out otherwise. So I'll just make it impossible to believe because I just give you all the data."
Totally classic straw man, right? You just exaggerate the hell out of it, and then people will write it off. You know, it's like that. I feel like that's.
And then we'll have George Clooney make a movie about it, and Charlie Kaufman write a script.
Right.
What do you guys think? All right, so maybe one of the last subjects, you guys can come up with one too. But I was just thinking about the clown world thing. I published this the other day. Someone was like, everyone's like, "Oh, this is a clown world. There's a clown world." And like, no, it's not. Like, a clown world would be awesome. You know what I mean? Like, we don't live in a clown world. We live in a solemn world. You know, this is a world where. I wrote it. We do not live in a clown world. We live in a solemn world. Jesters use humor and satire to criticize the powerful, expose flaws, and offer veiled truths the king could not otherwise hear. What if we lived in a jester world? You know, wouldn't that be the ideal?
The clown world's the same thing as calling someone a dunce, and not realizing that a dunce was actually someone that was really smart, and they were trying to channel intelligence basically from
corner,
the spiritual
from the angels,
world, right? But this weird inversion that we constantly do, where we take a word that's supposed to mean smart, oh, great job, Einstein, or calling someone a dunce. Like, we always invert these things. So I think this is probably just another example of the inversion, where you call something the opposite of what it really is, because
right.
And I don't know if it started as sarcasm or like the dunce thing. It turned into like anti-religious sentiment, because the guy that did
my
it
dad as a
Catholic,
kid, he always was like, "Nice shot, Oswald." It took me like years to understand.
He's talking about the bunny rabbit in the cartoon, right? No, but no, you're onto something there, and it works in the reversal too, where you have the fool. When somebody's playing the fool, it takes a wise man to play the part of a fool, and I think that's the thing that like a lot of people are looking at with like the archetype behind Donald Trump is such that he's like going to play the fool. Even you could say the same thing about George W. in his own way. But fool, etymologically, like the roots of that's anthropological. Like we're talking about that for this pamphlet, the Kubrick pamphlet with the golden bow. It's like anthropologically, you have the fool is actually the wisest person. It's like even you see that with like the shaman, where you have this like, this really like extreme out there personality, but he's actually the one who's in touch with the spiritual realms. And so like, yeah, fool from phallus, it's from where we get like means bellows. It's a tool that you use to start a fire, which is why we have like, if somebody's full of hot air, if you say, oh, they're full of hot air, it's like attached to the word fool because from its etymological roots, because it's starting a fire. It also relates Kabbalistically, where you're like, Aleph is associated with the fool in tarot. And then you have, the fire is shin, right? So you have like mem is water, shin is fire. So you have like, what is it that's perpetuating this?
Dude's
this
an alchemical practice.
Yeah.
He's
really
doing the thing, stoking the fire.
Well, there's a dental connection here too, because that's the only other profession I can think of where you go in and you unexpectedly end up laughing for an hour and then you leave again.
Only recently though, but yeah, I wonder if dentists used to be better, like have clowns, like rodeo clowns.
I would say recently. I mean, Priestley discovered nitrous in the 1700s.
We didn't use it at first. So nitrous was discovered. That doesn't mean it was used for medicine. Medicine was really against anesthesia. A lot of people thought that the pain was part of the healing process.
Right. Well, it didn't start as medicine anyways.
Like, yank out, like they cut, like let's say you have a gallstone. They cut open your taint and then they pry it out, but they have to have 4 guys holding you while they have 20 doctors up there watching the whole thing. And it was eventually, I think, one of the researchers who was experimenting with gas 7089 or whatever it was, because these weren't completely understood yet. They're like, oh, I'll buy some fumes and I'll inhale them and things like that. Like, wow, this could be really interesting if it was used for medicine. And then like 50 years later, they tried it, but they were arguing about it 50 years later. They're like, no, because that would remove the pain process. And then also what would happen, maybe the person wouldn't actually, heal. And so when they started introducing nitrous, that's why it's also been like the number one that they used, because they were like, well, we probably shouldn't be using healing drugs for the anesthesia product, because they had problems with opiates in the past. And so nitrous was really useful until the 60s when they introduced cyclohexamines, and now they use disassociatives instead of opiates.
But it was definitely recreational before it was medical. Like, it was laughing gas from the first time that someone sat in a room full of it, and he was like, this is awesome, I'm going to do this every day for the rest of my life. And he
but it was more popular for alchemists, inventors, intellectuals. It didn't end up being a medicine for like 100.
Right. Well, they would go around in early America. They would have like these like traveling like nitrous experiences where they would set up shop, and you would pay $3 and you could go and sit in this room full of nitrous for like a few hours, and then they would close up shop and then go to the next town. And it was just like this way of like, hey, look at this quirky, altered state that was basically for people that had expendable cash.
Yeah, it looks like 1740s is like the invention. 1792 is the terminology of laughing gas. 1840s is the first suggestion of using anesthesia. 1845 is the first demonstration. 1900 is the first common usage, because it was not popularly accepted at the demonstration. So it's really weird to think about, but yeah, we loved pain. Like the human condition in Europe was like, hey, you're not feeling well, take this ginger and shove it up, it'll help you suffer more. I mean, this is a really
right. Well, look at the people in the UK and their teeth, man. I don't know, is that connected somehow? Why
I
is
feel like
bad?
it ought to be. You think about, like, you look at the skeletons of humans until the 15th 16th century, 12th 15th 16th century, they're all perfect teeth. And then all of a sudden you've got the Industrial Revolution, the enclosure movement in Britain. Right?
So this connects to fluoride as well. What's the similarities between the timeline of fluoride and nitrous, I wonder, as you're describing it? Because I hadn't heard that with nitrous. I didn't realize the more recent phenomenon of using it the way that we do. Because
I mean, yeah, and not only that it opened up the floodgates of using other things for anesthesia. We were completely against the use of any anesthesia. It was like, there's other things you could have used, you know, like and in old wives' medicines, like they were doing that too. They were definitely giving people herbal medicines that were helpful.
I watched like a community television thing for Watsonville. So we're in Santa Cruz, but like for Watsonville, for putting fluoride in the water years ago. And the only specialists that they had on there to speak on behalf of why they should put fluoride in the water were all dentists. And I was like, we're not talking about if it's good for your teeth or not, even though that could be debatable. But even such, it was like all your internal organs. Like, I was just like, this seems so obvious. I'm watching adults.
Yeah, it'd be like getting a bunch of models to be like, heroin's so good for your hair, you know. Like,
no, right? I was just like, are you talking for real? And they would cut the people off who got passionate, and like I kind of am about RFK here, but people get passionate about their feelings on fluoride, and they go to speak up and they get energetic, and they'd be like, no, you're getting too carried away, we're going to cut you off. And then they put on some next dentist to talk about the benefits, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me, man? Like, that was crazy. But yeah, anyway, whatever.
Well, I was just going to pull up cryptohubrology. Maybe Alex, you want to share a few more synchronicities that we've been deconstructing?
Yeah, okay, well, right there, that little thing there, the eclipse, it's like little, what I call parent thesis, which is like a symmetrical arrangement in time, starting with the eclipse, 6 days. 4/14 is going to be the day that Israel turns 911 months old. And then,
oh, thank you. I saw this the other day online, and I was like, "Why Israel 9/11 months?" Like, I was I almost asked you, but thank you. Okay,
maybe I should redo this, but this was just like a quick thing. But yeah, Israel will be 911 months old, and then 4/20 will be, 4/20. It's Hitler's 135th birthday, among other anniversaries. So I'm kind of looking at April 14th, because April 14th is also the Kubrick's wedding anniversary. So it's something that I've looked at a lot. The 66th wedding anniversary, actually, they will be.
Again, like if you're Kubrick, you're picking your wedding. You know
right?
I mean?
Sure.
What day?
Yeah, with Christian.
dude, Paths of Glory. When his wife shows up at the end and she sings that song, do you have any commentary on that or any thoughts on that? Because wow, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah. The scene. Well, I think there's you got to sync the movies, and like see what it's like, what's going on in the other movies at that time, and I do think there are some parallels between movies such as like Rosemary's Baby, for instance.
Sure, 2001, yeah,
and then in the end of Full Metal Jacket, the connotations of like one woman surrounded in like a whole room of men.
Oh, I kind of get where you're going with that. Yeah,
there's something about that. I don't know. It's an interesting subject, but
yeah, it is an interesting subject. It's a German woman that this Jewish director married against all controversy around it.
Yeah, not just German, but she was the daughter of Veit Harlan, who was Goebbels' top director, top filmmaker.
Yeah, totally.
There's a whole documentary about him, actually. So.
I think you could argue that Paths of Glory is like one of, if not like the first real anti-war film. Like, I mean, it's very much like
All Quiet on the Western Front is pretty anti-war, I would say.
Sure,
that's in the 30s, but that's like
that's the 30s, yeah. Oh wow, that's the 30s. I think that was the 40s, but okay, yeah, but still,
that's 1931 or something.
Yeah, well, it's still it's ahead of the game as far as like what is essentially an activism film about war. But yeah, it reminds me of Journey to the End of the Night, actually.
When was Best Years of Our Lives?
That was 45, I think.
Okay, so that's a little bit later.
That was like right at the end of right after the war ended.
Yeah, because it's with an actual soldier who's missing his limbs, but that's pretty anti-war. No,
true. Yeah.
So I think you win with 30s.
Yeah. It also feels like it's very American, even though that's not America. So it's like what they did with like Marie Antoinette, or even the recent Napoleon film, which I would argue Ridley Scott was trying to get ahead of the game with Spielberg to do Kubrick's Napoleon as kind of an FU to what Spielberg had done to Kubrick in the past, which I've talked about. But there's that things where you're watching a film that's supposed to be foreign, but then it feels like it's as applicable to America. And then maybe that's why he's like not even going to bother to even having anyone even speak in an accent, let alone another language. I don't know.
Sure.
Well, that's because America's the platonic solid of cultures. So
we were at that moment. At that moment, everything was all Americanized everywhere. The Casablanca vibe that you're like, no matter where you are, it's like an American's world. That was happening.
It's the pain of being the sun and the source of light. Is everywhere you look, you're like, oh, it's something like me, and you get up really close, and you realize it's just you reflecting onto it.
Aww.
Right.
Man,
totally. It's like Littlefoot in the land. I'm running up to his shadow and he sees his mother. He's like, "Oh, it's you." Oh, it's just shit.
Everybody, make sure you guys go to Cryptocubrology and check out his amazing schizo posting.
And my Substack is the new thing. I think it's the first time I've been on the show since I put this up.
I'm really excited you have a Substack. I didn't actually know that yet. I'll subscribe and actually
several things with some of my art and some of David's art as well. There's a small book's worth of posts on there at the moment. Like I said, detailing this whole Willy Wonka thing, and please read at your leisure. I think it's quite interesting if you're interested in the subject.
That's it. Yeah, it's fucking amazing. It's good. It's good. It's classic sync thread.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is awesome. A Substack is exactly what you need, and I'm super stoked. So I'll be putting this in my subscriptions of Substack.
And it gets dark. It's like it goes to some dark places too. So I'll just leave it at that.
Epic Barbenheimer. Okay. Yeah, everybody go check out the Cryptocubrology Substack. You can find it through Cryptocubrology on Twitter. And make sure you go to paranoidamerican.com where you can pick up the Chosen One. Now, Chosen One issue 2 is available.
Yeah, that's the big one. At chosenone.com. And right now there's only one left of the $80 homunculus combo tier, which might be undersold a little bit on this page. It has actually got an incredible amount of stuff on it, including the latest episode or issue of Occultist Monday, which is Juan's ongoing alchemical zine. And the upcoming installment is entirely on the homunculus. He's hand making these little like wooden homunculus air fresheners. Like it's gonna have a homunculus trading card. It's like the full homunculus. It comes with a freaking homunculus growing kit, which I sourced myself over the last year. It's got like a little magical bag. It's gonna be like pretty cool for anyone that even knows what a homunculus is and like likes that concept. There's nothing you're gonna find that's gonna have as much homunculus stuff.
Amazing.
I like how much energy Johnny Woodward has here. This is the can you imagine if Johnny drank coffee more? Like what he would be like? Oh,
and that is
Alex Stein is really like it's real.
This has got like my favorite scene from the Beetlejuice right there, and Alex Stein is when they ask Beetlejuice if he can be scary. So this one they're like, can you be funny? And he opens up his coat and he just has every genital known to man.
That's beautiful. Make sure you guys go to David Charles Plate. Check out MK Ultrasound on Twitter, and you can also go through that to the Sync book link, which will take you to the Sync book, which is we got a lot of things here. Actually, I want to push a little harder. I don't talk about it enough, but our friends, we've had Will Morgan on. We've had Bill. We've had people doing 42 minutes.
We've had Alan Green too. Yeah,
but Alan Green. This is a collection of some pretty interesting esoteric synchronicities, and if you're interested in this stuff, you should definitely check out 42 Minutes and Always Record. Both really amazing things going back like 10 years or more, and there's just amazing talks with synchromystics and witches and warlocks and politicians and celebrities and pop stars and about them. It's great. I love this. So yeah, definitely check that out on your way to David's videos, which you can find here. And also you can find directly on his page if you go to highlights from X. You can find all here. Here's Londo Ray's Honeymoon with Polanski's Bitter Moon, which the last one I saw recently, and it's freaking great. It's one of my favorites. I don't know how you're doing it. Better and better all the time.
Thank you. Yeah, you know what? When I listen to those always records, I kind of feel like I get annoyed hearing, because like my thoughts on things evolve and they develop, and so when you record something, you might not. I'll be like wanting to debate myself. So that's I kind of like that it's out there, but at the same time, it's a little annoying because I'm like, I don't even agree with myself some of the time, you know?
You just got to be right the first time. That's an easy
I'm trying. I know I could eat my hat over certain things, even that I'm saying on this show, but you know what? I still say it anyway. And
I want it in 5 years from now. We need to just like have a super cut of all of David's RFK stuff after RFK has like started World War III.
It'll happen. We didn't talk at all about Curb Your Enthusiasm. Everyone watching the show next week, we're going to probably bring it up. So make sure you've finished the show. Finish Curb Your Enthusiasm if you want to talk about it. But
we'll do that.
I think we'll bring it up. That sounds
pretty good.
I think I'm going to have to watch 4 seasons.
It's pretty good.
If you watch Seinfeld, this is the only spoiler I'll give you. If you watch Seinfeld, you can watch the last season. It's literally about that. All right. Cool. That's good. Richard Lewis is dead. Poor Richard Lewis, though.